Well, thank you for joining our presentation today. My name is Madison Crockett. I'm a registered dietitian, and I work here at Georgia Southern with Eagle Dining. Today, Ari and I will be presenting on sleep, wellness, and the nutrition connection.
Thanks, Madison. My name is Aria Lewis. I am the coordinator of student wellness and health promotion. As Madison stated, we will be reviewing the connection between sleep, wellness, and nutrition. So we'll go ahead and get started today. All right, first thing we'll discuss, why is sleep important? We hear this discussed so often, it's rare that we actually find out why, right, Madison? So sleep supports overall healthy brain functioning. It helps to maintain your physical health, it improves your mood overall, it helps to prevent illnesses, it boosts your memory and learning, and it reduces stress and inflammation. So those are kind of our key reasons why we'll want to make sure that we're getting our necessary sleep each and every day. And then on the flip side, not getting enough sleep can lead to health problems and illnesses such as heart disease, high blood pressure, depression, obesity, and more. And this is because it just increases your risk for getting these illnesses or these issues. So we really want to focus on the benefits and detriments of not getting enough sleep or getting your sleep as we move through this presentation today. All right, sorry about that. As I discussed, we will focus on wellness and sleep overall. First, we'll begin by defining wellness. What is wellness? Wellness is defined as the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain better physical and mental health outcomes. Oftentimes, when we think of wellness, we think about our typical things. How often are we exercising? Are we getting our 3 meals a day? But it's important that we imagine wellness as this all-encompassing term that incorporates each of the 8 dimensions of wellness that you see listed here. These dimensions are physical wellness, that's our exercise, how are we moving our body, our emotional wellness, how is our mental health, our social wellness, are we socializing, are we interacting with others on a daily basis, our mental and intellectual wellness, are we learning new things, are we using our brain, our vocational and career wellness, so your career path, your jobs, your work, our financial wellness. I'm sure we're all trying to improve our financial wellness, right? Our environmental wellness, so the environment around you. These could be things like, do you live in a safe environment? Let's talk about, the pollution in the area, all of these different things. And then lastly, spiritual and existential wellness. So as we move through our presentation today, I want you all to think about wellness as this all-encompassing term. I don't want you to limit yourself in what you're considering as your wellness. All right, we'll talk about wellness and sleep together. We'll discuss this through a few components. We'll talk about stress, pretty detailed. We'll go over screen time, and then we'll talk about some general lifestyle choices. These will be things like your physical exercise, your socialization, and then Madison will give us some really great insight and information on how our nutrition impacts our sleep. And we'll want to think about these components and impacting our sleep quality, so our sleep quantity, and our overall sleep satisfaction. How can stress affect your sleep? Let's begin by talking about stress. Stress is defined as the body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or a response. So oftentimes we are thinking about stress and we are actually talking about our stressor. What it is that's stressing you out is considered the stressor. The stress itself is how you are responding to that stress. There are actually 2 different types of stress. There's distress and there's eustress. We'll focus on distress today, but eustress is something sort of like positive stress, right? So to give you an example, that could be starting a new job. That could be getting a new car, things that are exciting and fun, but they're still a little bit stressful, right? We'll focus on distress today, or negative distress as it's usually referred to. Distress is stress that negatively affects you. It can manifest as physical and emotional signs, and these signs and symptoms look different for each person. So don't think that this is an exhaustive list, but this is just some examples of what stress can look like in the body. So we've got our physical symptoms. This could be things like headaches, upset stomach, fatigue, chest pains, and then we have our emotional symptoms. That could be feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, irritability, and other symptoms as well. So we'll talk about stress as it relates to our sleep. So stress and sleep, they're very closely related. They're pretty interlinked. So stress often negatively impacts your sleep quality and your sleep duration. Stress can cause racing thoughts and anxiety. So, have you ever been trying to go to sleep but you cannot stop thinking about what occurred that day, whatever that stressor is, right? This can delay your sleep onset, or in other words, it can prolong the amount of time it takes you to actually fall asleep. And then this happening repeatedly may actually lead to insomnia. Stress also increases your cortisol levels, which makes it overall harder for you to relax. This could lead to waking up in the middle of the night or waking up multiple times in the middle of the night, or this can lead to what we call non restorative sleep. So, what I mean by that is perhaps you have slept, perhaps you got your 7 to 9 hours, but you haven't actually felt rejuvenated or rested during that sleep because you kept waking up or you didn't go through that full sleep cycle. It's also important to discuss the importance of nighttime routines when we're discussing stress and sleep. So, things that you do before you go to sleep can often contribute to that sleep quality, to that sleep quantity. Things like limiting caffeine, limiting screen time, which we'll discuss a little bit, and also going to sleep at a consistent time each night and/or doing some relaxation techniques before bed. All of these items may help you go to sleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling restored. All right. So how can your screen time affect your sleep? I gave you a little sneak peek on that last slide. So we'll talk about the role of screen time as it relates to your sleep. Excessive screen time is linked to increased stress and anxiety. So the overload of information and the overload of just that digital content in general can really negatively impact your mental and your physical well-being, and this contributes to your sleep. First, we'll focus on that blue light exposure. So when you're using your screens, whether that be computers, iPads, phones, tablets, there is this blue light within the screen that you are exposed to, that your eyes and your brain are exposed to every time you use the screen. This exposure can lead to disrupted sleep patterns and also lead to fatigue. So, for example, your circadian rhythm can be disrupted by blue light exposure. And your circadian rhythm is basically your body's internal clock. So, it tells you when to do everything. It tells you when to sleep, it tells you when to wake up, when to use the restroom, when to eat, all of your body's processes, right? Blue light exposure disrupts this internal clock, which can lead to inconsistent waking and sleeping times and patterns. Excessive screen time can also decrease the body's natural melatonin production, which is a crucial component of naturally falling asleep. It can also cause eye strains and headaches. So, we really want to focus on reducing our screen time, specifically about 2 hours before bed, which can cause you to fall asleep easier, faster, and overall lead to a better quality of sleep. If you're like, it's really hard for me to put that screen down right now, we can also consider things like blue light glasses or blue light filters, which can reduce the exposure to that blue light. In the same context of screen time, really focusing on what you're consuming can also impact your sleep by causing you stress. So, with social media, with access to the internet, access to our screens, we have access to all of the information all of the time, which can be very overwhelming for a sleeping brain, whether that be news or politics or just things that are happening in the world. You want to stay informed, but sometimes it may also be good to do a digital detox for your own mental health. This could lead to improved mental health, lower levels of stress, thus impacting that quality of sleep. All right, so next we're going to go over those general lifestyle choices that I mentioned before. Um, your sleep is really connected to the choices you make on a daily basis. So, your physical activity, your socialization, of course, your nutrition can impact how long and how often and how well you sleep. This impacts your overall sleep satisfaction. We'll focus on physical activity first. Regular exercise enhances sleep, specifically in the mornings, may be the most beneficial for your sleep quality and quantity. Physical activity right before bed actually may prolong the time in which you are able to fall asleep due to certain neurotransmitters such as dopamine being released. But some physical activity is better than no physical activity. So if you need to do it before bed, if you need to do it in the night, that's okay too, but in the morning may be the most beneficial. We want to think about when it comes to physical activity, we really want to cater the activity to what your body is capable and comfortable with doing. All exercise does not have to be very intense or very strenuous. The simple act of moving your body can go a very long way. So activities like walking, yoga, stretching, strength training, dancing, which is super fun, are all great options and ways to move your body. Again, cater your physical activity to what you are capable of. Perhaps you are a person who utilizes a wheelchair. Perhaps chair stretches or chair yoga would be a great option for you to move your body. And then also with physical activity, we want to keep in mind that spending time outdoors and getting fresh air have really important, crucial components to reducing stress and anxiety. And as we know, lower stress levels often leads to better sleep. So consider an outdoor walk or an outdoor stretch. I'm not sure if you want to dance in the middle of the outside, but you can do that if you would like. I'll probably join you. All right, next up, we'll talk about mindfulness practices and relaxation as it relates to sleep. First and foremost, we'll define mindfulness here. So, mindfulness is pretty much the active state of being present with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your bodily sensations, your surroundings, everything that is happening to you or you are feeling in the current moment without judgment. So often we are stuck in rehash and rehearse. We're rehashing what has gone on. Oh my gosh, I should have said this in this conversation. Oh my gosh, I should have wrote this down on the exam instead. Or rehearsing what is going to happen. How will my meeting with my boss go? What will I do post graduation? It's really rare, although those are completely valid. It's very rare that we are actually sitting in the present moment, free from judgment of how we're feeling, how our body is feeling, what we're thinking, what's surrounding us. So mindfulness really gives you a moment to be where your feet are. It can lead to relaxation. It can lead to better overall mood. It can lead to increased focus, concentration. Mindfulness has some pretty serious benefits. It's really changed my life. There are a couple of different ways that you can practice mindfulness. One of which is guided meditations. So oftentimes when I ask students or I ask individuals what they think of when they hear meditation, they think of the typical picture, someone's legs crossed, you're saying, you got your eyes closed. And although that is a beautiful form of meditation, that does not always have to look that way. Meditation is simply a practice of focusing or clearing your mind using a combination of mental and physical techniques. So even concentrating on your breathing, focusing on the inhale and the exhale of your lungs, focusing on the rise and fall of your chest, that is a moment of mindfulness. My favorite way to practice meditation is through guided meditations. There is an app called Insight Timer, a free app with access to hundreds of guided meditations, some of which are used specifically to help individuals fall and go to sleep. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like in just a moment. Again, I mentioned those breathing exercises is an awesome way to practice mindfulness as well. Again, focusing on the rise and fall of the chest, the inhale and the exhale of the breath. Like stretching and yoga, journaling is a great way to practice mindfulness, enjoying hobbies, doing things you love, and then also nighttime routines. So even if that's taking a second after you've done your skincare or whatever your nighttime routine consists of, to really just sit with yourself for a moment, observe how you're feeling, observe where you are, and take in the current moment. All right, to give you guys an example, this is an example meditation. It is a self-compassion meditation for sleep. I'll play just a moment of it because I don't want you all to fall asleep today. But this will kind of give you all some insight on what a guided meditation looks like and sounds like. Madison, do you mind playing that for me? If we can't get it, that's totally okay. We can link that where we're posting this webinar. So feel free to watch that on your own time, or feel free to actually play it when you need some good sleep for the night. You can put that on, and it really just talks you through going to sleep. It does affirmations, and it really allows you to really sit with how you're feeling, not push those thoughts away, but sit in them, and it relaxes you. And honestly, y'all, you may be getting to about 5 minutes of a guided sleep meditation before you're out already. All right, I'll hand it over to Madison for nutrition.
Thank you, Aria. That was all very helpful information, and I definitely need to apply some of those tips. So now I'll provide a few details about the connection between our eating patterns and sleep. So for starters, what is nutrition? Nutrition is actually a complex science that includes the consumption, digestion, and absorption of nutrients. And when I say nutrients, I mean both macronutrients and micronutrients. And macronutrients, those include our carbohydrates, our fats, and our proteins, which gives our body energy. And those micronutrients mostly include vitamins and minerals, which are important for a lot of our body's functions. And the best way to get these needed nutrients is a balanced eating pattern containing a variety of nutrient dense foods. Energy dense foods have a higher number of calories per serving, but a lower nutrient content. Whereas when I say nutrient dense foods, I mean foods that are packed with vitamins and minerals and other essential nutrients relative to its calorie content and thus are better balanced. So in this case, you get like more bang for your buck. And examples of energy dense meals versus nutrient dense meals can be seen on the side. So as you can see from these photos, it doesn't have to be a really dramatic change. You can still enjoy your cereal, still enjoy your chicken, still enjoy your potatoes and those wraps, but just making slight changes can make a big difference. And our most nutrient dense foods are like our fruits, our vegetables, our whole grains, and our lean proteins. So, a healthy eating pattern that I mentioned previously is that balanced intake of each food group with a focus on those nutrient dense food items. So, like I said, those nutrient dense items you can see on this plate method. And this My Plate is from the USDA and helps provide a visual representation of how to include each food group on your plate throughout the day and can be personalized to each person's cultural and taste preferences. So that's what I really love, like kind of about these eating patterns, is you can still personalize it based on what you like and what you want. So what you eat is not going to look like your neighbors, and that's perfectly fine. And here are more details on each food group and, recommended daily intake. Most of us do not get enough of these different food groups, so, start where you're at and try to just make those slow and steady changes. And I can send these as well if you are interested in having a copy of your own, or you can find them online at USDA and My Plate. So, what does this have to do with sleep, anyways, right? So, overall, healthier eating patterns help encourage healthier sleeping patterns. So, for example, having a healthier diet helps establish and maintain like a normal, healthier weight, which in turn leads to better sleep and makes you less likely to suffer from fatigue, insomnia, and different issues like obstructive sleep apnea. And there are a lot of different nutrients that help aid in sleep, and these are just a few of the more well known ones. And we know that these different main micronutrients are important for sleep. The research is still ongoing regarding the actual role they play in the sleep wake cycle, though we do know that they have a role. But from the findings that we found so far, we know that B vitamins may help regulate melatonin levels, which help us go to sleep. We found that vitamin D is involved in the production of melatonin. We found that omega-3 fatty acids, as you can see some sources of that on the screen, those can help enhance sleep duration, sleep quality, and help regulate melatonin. Tryptophan, which you can find in things like turkey and cheese, may help increase serotonin levels. And zinc may also help with sleep duration and quality. So the foods that are listed with each nutrient are good sources of those nutrients and are considered nutrient dense and are good to include in a balanced eating pattern, whether you're having issues with sleep or not. But did you know that there are items that we need to be mindful of and that the timing of our food intake matters too? So, consuming some foods and beverages too close to bedtime can negatively affect your sleep. For example, caffeine. Who drinks it? Who likes it, right? Especially in the mornings, we usually think of coffee because it's that stimulant, helpful earlier in the day, help us to get going, help us to focus. But we need to be mindful that caffeine, that stimulant effect can last up to 6 hours. So, if you're still drinking your coffee at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, guess what? Those effects are still taking place at 9 to 10 p.m. So, that in mind, it's recommended to cut off your caffeine intake earlier in the afternoon to reduce the risk of that disrupted sleep and insomnia. And what are some sources of caffeine? I know we're probably all thinking of coffee, but there are a lot more than just coffee. We have our energy drinks, a lot of our teas, including, our American sweet tea, dark sodas like Pepsi and Coke, even if it's diet, doesn't matter. Dark soda that has caffeine and chocolate. So if you notice that you're having a hard time sleep and you're already following all these other tips, take a look at these food items and it might be your problem. Okay, the next one we have alcohol. So alcohol is a depressant. And some people like to have a glass of wine before bed, helps them fall asleep, and it can help you fall asleep quickly. But, once that effect wears off, you may find yourself waking up and then struggling to fall back asleep. So be mindful of that. And also just keep in mind, intake can worsen sleep apnea symptoms if you already have that issue. And we also know that overconsumption can lead to multiple medical issues like liver disease. So next we have spicy and acidic foods. Both of those are a lot of fun and both of them can have a lot of perks to them too. But if you have issues with gastric reflux and heartburn, you might not want to have these right before bed, especially because you eat those foods and then you lay down. That reflux and heartburn, those are going up all the more. Spicy foods can also temporarily increase our body temperature, which is kind of contradicts what our body likes to do at bedtime, as our body likes to cool down as it falls asleep. So if we're warming it up with spicy foods, it's going to be more difficult to fall asleep as well. So still enjoy them, but maybe wait, enjoy them, 2 to 3 hours before bedtime if you want to avoid those issues. As for high fat and high protein foods, these are great, especially earlier in the day, give our body a lot of energy that we need, a lot of fullness to keep us going throughout the day, but they do take longer to digest. So you notice, when you eat high fat, protein foods, you don't get hungry for a while, which is great in the mornings. And I encourage these foods in the mornings. But if you have them, right before bed, they're not digesting quickly. So they're just going to sit on that stomach because our digestion actually slows down by like 30 to 50% when we're asleep. So if you don't want that full stomach and that discomfort, maybe save those for earlier in the day or at least have a few hours before your last big meal before bedtime. Now, who gets hungry at bedtime, right? We all have those times when we are still hungry when it is time to go to sleep. So if you ever feel like you need a snack before bedtime, go get something that digests a little quicker and easier. We have some examples on here, but these are all like complex carbohydrate sources, like our milk, some crackers, some cereal that's not too sugary, just to get something on that stomach. However, if you notice this is happening night after night after night, there's probably a bigger issue at hand, and you're probably not getting enough to eat throughout the day. So take a step back, have some self reflection, take a look at what your habits are doing, journal if you need to, and see, am I getting enough to eat? Am I skipping breakfast? Did I skip breakfast and lunch? Do I need to maybe add some snacks in between my meals? That is totally fine to do. And if you need help, if you feel like you need an extra set of eyes to figure out what's going on, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to work through that with you. So, on the flip side, adequate sleep often leads to better nutrition. For example, inadequate sleep, not getting enough, can impact your hormones and your cognitive function or the way you think, which then affects your hunger cues and your appetite, which then affects your eating habits. So, for example, did you stay up too late last night and then oversleep this morning? And then because of that, you skip breakfast? Well, how is that going to impact the rest of your day? I know for me and many others that I've talked to, when this happens, we're more likely to seek out those energy dense foods. So, we're getting a lot of calories, getting a lot of energy, but not much of our needed nutrients that we talked about instead. And so, if we keep doing this too often, we might get some nutrient deficiencies. And on top of that, might get some weight gain if we have too many, high calorie foods. So, it really does impact our choices. And we can just be much more impulsive rather than mindful. Wrap up this nutrition portion. We know that sleep matters. We know that wellness matters. We know that nutrition matters. And we know that they all go together. So have patience with yourself, patience with the process as you work towards healthier habits. And again, if you'd like any helpful resources or guidance with your nutrition goals, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help. Now I'll turn it back over to Aria.
Thanks, Madison. We would like to thank you all who are viewing this, who are sharing this virtual safe space with us at a later time. I want to give you all a chance to kind of reflect on what you have learned today, your initial thoughts and your initial reactions from today's workshop. So we have some journaling prompts here. We just want you to think about first, what are your initial thoughts from today's workshop? What is your biggest takeaway? You can choose one of these or feel free to kind of think about all of these prompts. You can think too, what did you learn that you will consider using in your own life to better your sleep habits? So did you hear Madison or I say something that really sparked your interest and said, hey, I need to do more of that, or I need to do less of that? And then lastly, what barriers do you anticipate as you begin to make changes to improve your sleep habits? So again, kind of wrapping up here, what we learned today, what we're going to take with us, and then what we anticipate kind of standing in our way as we make these changes. I, for one, have some things to share. I'm thinking about barriers here in my own life. I, being the coordinator of student wellness and health promotion and responsible for program planning and facilitation, that can happen at a lot of different times and a lot of different days throughout the week. So there are some days where I have workshops from 6 to 8 p.m., or I have weekend workshops. Overall, I just don't have a steady schedule day to day. With that being said, I've learned the importance of really carving out time in my day for me. So I'm scheduling my sleep. No matter what happens, when I need to be asleep, it is time to put my screens down and do my relaxation techniques and go to sleep. Also, thinking about nutrition, carving out times to actually eat in the day. So perhaps if I have a late night workshop, I've meal prepped and I'm bringing it with me so I can take a second to have that meal. So I'm not eating too soon before bed. Also, I really do not like preparing breakfast for myself, Madison. So I recently discovered overnight oats, thinking of easy things to implement in your life that really cater to your life, your schedule, your needs, and your wants.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree. I was really encouraged by a lot of your tips that you provided. And just really like, as you said, like being mindful, being present. Because I think for a lot of us, we have a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. We're always thinking about what's next rather than just like, okay, this is where I'm at. Let me be present. Let me give it my all. And I'll deal with what's next when I get there. Right. Um, and I think for me too, like the barriers that I anticipate is really just the overall barrier of change is hard, right? So we all like our comfort zone. We like to be comfortable. We like to do the same thing, even when we know we need to make those changes. So I think really just that's my barrier. I know things I need to do, like get off my phone too close to bedtime, not scroll, just put it away and be thoughtful before I go to bed. But change is hard, but it's just really taking that first step and realizing that we can go much further if we just take it one step at a time.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said about the scrolling. I think we have all fell victim to a doom scroll or two. So I think we all can really benefit from putting those screens down specifically before bed. So if you are interested in kind of sharing your takeaways with us, sharing your reactions with us, or if you have any questions, you can see our references and our resources here. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to Madison or myself for any wellness, nutrition, or sleep, or stress, or any of the components that we discussed today. And again, we really just like to thank you, number one, for viewing this workshop, but also taking the time out to really learn something for yourself, to do something for yourself. That is what you did today. So
Yeah, well said, Aria. Thank you.
thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you
Well, y'all
all.
have a good rest of your day, and thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.